She agreed to bear him an heir, and the deal was meant to stay secret. Aisha was always careful with her life. She grew up in a family that had little money but high expectations. Her parents worked hard, and they wanted her to live a life of respect and stability. From a young age, she learned to be disciplined. She studied well, helped at home, and always thought about the future. She dreamed of a life that was secure, peaceful, and full of opportunities. But she also knew the world was not always fair to young women who tried to make their own path. Fahad, on the other hand, lived a life that Aisha could only imagine. He came from wealth and power, a man everyone in society recognized. He was handsome, with a confident way of speaking that made people listen. People admired him, but he also carried pressure from his family. Fahad's family was traditional, and they wanted him to have children, especially a son, to continue their lineage. Despite his money and influence, he was not truly free. His life had rules, and he had to follow them, no matter what he wanted personally. The two of them met at a charity event. Aisha had volunteered because she wanted to help people and gain some experience in organizing events. Fahad was there to support the charity. When he first saw Aisha, she was busy arranging donations and guiding volunteers. There was something in the way she handled everything calmly, without rushing, that caught his attention. She did not speak for attention or recognition, yet she managed everything with intelligence and poise. Fahad introduced himself politely, complimenting her on her hard work. Aisha smiled politely but kept her distance. She had learned early that charm and flattery could be dangerous, especially from someone she didn't know. She was polite, but she did not let her guard down. They spoke for a few minutes, discussing the charity's work and her future goals. Fahad was impressed by her answers. She was not only smart but also practical and thoughtful. He saw in her someone different from the people he usually met in his world. A few days later, Fahad asked Aisha to meet him privately. He told her he had a proposal, something unusual. Aisha felt a chill in her stomach. She had an idea that it would not be a normal request, but she agreed because she was careful and wanted to hear him out. When they met, Fahad explained everything in clear terms. His family wanted an heir, and he could not risk it being public or scandalous. He proposed that Aisha bear him a child. He promised her that everything would remain secret. He assured her that she would be financially secure, that she would never be alone, and that her family's future would also be safe. Aisha was shocked. She had never imagined herself in such a situation. She thought about morality, about what society would say if anyone knew, and about her own feelings. She also thought about her family and the security this arrangement could bring. She knew it was risky, but she was practical. Fahad was serious, and he had offered her a clear plan with boundaries. She went home that evening and thought for hours. She spoke to her closest friend, someone she trusted completely. They discussed the risks, the benefits, and the reality of such an arrangement. Aisha realized that her life could change completely if she agreed. She would gain security, but she would also face secrecy, emotional challenges, and possible judgment if anyone ever found out. Yet, she also realized she could say no. No one could force her. In the end, Aisha made her decision carefully. She agreed to the proposal, but only with clear rules. Everything must remain secret, she would have her own space, and she would make all decisions about her body and life. Fahad agreed to every condition. After the agreement, things changed. Aisha moved into a discreet, well-arranged place provided by Fahad. It was luxurious, but she did not feel trapped. She had her own space, her own freedom, and a small group of trusted helpers who respected her privacy. Fahad met her at set times as agreed, keeping the relationship professional. At first, their meetings were formal, almost businesslike. Fahad respected her boundaries, and Aisha respected his. Living in this new arrangement was not easy for Aisha. She had to adjust to a life that was separate from normal society. She could not share her situation with friends or family beyond the few she trusted. She had to learn to navigate her new life quietly, carefully, without drawing attention. Yet she also noticed something unexpected. Fahad was different from what she imagined. He was kind in small ways, respectful and attentive. He listened to her, asked about her comfort, and never pressured her beyond the agreement. Slowly, she realized that even though their relationship began as a deal, it had moments of genuine human care. Fahad, meanwhile, was facing his own challenges. The pressure from his family was constant, and he could not show weakness. Yet he found himself thinking about Aisha more than he expected. Her calmness, intelligence, and courage impressed him. He respected her in a way he had never respected anyone before. At times, he felt something more than respect, but he reminded himself of the agreement. They were not supposed to fall in love, not supposed to let emotions complicate the plan. Aisha also struggled with emotions. She sometimes felt lonely, missed normal social interactions, and wondered if she had made the right choice. Yet, she reminded herself of her reasons: security, independence, and her family's future. She had made a decision, and she intended to handle it with dignity. She also realized she had strength she did not know she possessed. She could face this unusual arrangement and still maintain her self-respect. The days passed, and a routine formed. They met as agreed, discussed practical matters, and kept their private lives separate. But even within this routine, small moments of connection appeared. Aisha noticed Fahad's subtle care, his willingness to adjust arrangements to her comfort, and his genuine respect. Fahad noticed her intelligence, her independence, and the calm way she managed challenges. Both realized that while the agreement was based on necessity, human emotions could not be completely controlled. Despite the professionalism, there were moments of vulnerability. Aisha sometimes felt anxious about what the future held. She worried about pregnancy, health, and the unknown. Fahad, too, experienced moments of doubt. Could he handle the responsibility without emotional complications? Could he maintain the secrecy if feelings grew? Yet they navigated these moments carefully, relying on honesty and mutual respect. Aisha also reflected on the lessons she had learned from life. She realized that life often demanded tough choices, and sometimes one had to take risks to protect family and future. She learned patience, resilience, and the power of clear boundaries. Fahad, too, learned that power and wealth could not replace human respect and connection. He saw that Aisha's presence challenged him to think beyond obligations and status, to consider emotions and morality. As part one of their story closes, Aisha's life has changed completely. She has entered a world of wealth and secrecy, bound by an agreement that is unusual but carefully arranged. She is cautious but confident, aware of the risks but determined to maintain her dignity. Fahad is careful, respectful, and increasingly aware of emotions he cannot ignore. The stage is set for challenges ahead, emotional, social, and practical. But both Aisha and Fahad have shown they are capable of facing what comes with courage, intelligence, and respect. Life settled into a quiet rhythm for Aisha, though it was a rhythm unlike anything she had known before. Her days were filled with small routines that made her feel secure, even if the world outside was unaware of her reality. She had her own space, carefully arranged by Fahad with everything she could need. The home was beautiful, clean, and peaceful, yet it was also a place of secrecy. She could not step outside freely without risk of gossip, and she had to be careful about every visitor, every word, every gesture. At first, Aisha felt lonely. She missed her friends, the small joys of ordinary life, and even the casual freedom of public spaces. She could not talk about her life, could not share her thoughts, and had to keep her feelings carefully hidden. But over time, she adapted. She found small ways to fill her days, reading, writing, and learning new skills. She even began to take long walks in the private garden surrounding her home, where she could breathe fresh air and feel a sense of normalcy without being seen. Fahad continued to visit as planned, always careful, always professional. Their meetings began formally, almost like a business arrangement, but small gestures started to emerge. He would ask about her comfort, notice when she seemed tired, and sometimes leave little notes of encouragement. At first, Aisha resisted these gestures. She had agreed to this arrangement for practical reasons, and she did not want emotions to complicate her life. Yet, she could not deny that she appreciated the kindness. Over time, their conversations began to change. They were no longer only about schedules, rules, and practical matters. Fahad started to ask about her thoughts, her dreams, and even her opinions about topics unrelated to their arrangement. Aisha noticed this change with quiet surprise. She had expected a cold, transactional relationship, but Fahad treated her with respect and curiosity. She, in turn, began to respond with more openness, though always cautiously. Even with this growing understanding, Aisha faced constant emotional challenges. She wondered about the future, about her own feelings, and about the child she might one day carry. She struggled with the morality of the arrangement, the secrecy, and the social consequences if anyone discovered the truth. At the same time, she reminded herself of the reasons she had agreed. Her family would be secure, she would have independence, and she could control her own life in ways she could not have imagined before. These thoughts gave her strength. Fahad faced his own struggles. He had grown accustomed to power and control in his life, but he realized that he could not control everything, especially when it came to human emotions. He found himself thinking about Aisha at unexpected times, her intelligence, her calmness, the way she approached life. He respected her greatly, more than he respected most people he knew, and he began to feel a quiet concern for her that went beyond their agreement. Yet he reminded himself constantly of the rules. They were not to fall in love, they were not to let emotions disrupt the secrecy, and they were not to risk anything outside the plan. As weeks passed, small complications began to appear. Aisha sometimes felt isolated, and the pressure of secrecy weighed heavily on her. She could not attend family events freely or meet friends without explanation. Each time she left her home, she had to carefully plan her movements, avoid public places, and sometimes make excuses to anyone who might ask questions. She learned to navigate social situations with subtlety, to smile and appear normal, even when her heart was heavy. Fahad, too, had to navigate difficult circumstances. His family continued to pressure him about having an heir, unaware that the plan was already in motion. He could not show weakness or indecision, yet he found himself drawn to Aisha's calm presence. He began to realize that his feelings were becoming more complicated. He cared about her well-being in a personal way, not just as part of an arrangement. He noticed her small struggles, her quiet resilience, and her intelligence, and he admired her more than he had expected. Their meetings became a mixture of practicality and quiet connection. Fahad would discuss arrangements, financial matters, and household needs, but he also began to ask about Aisha's personal life in subtle ways. He would inquire about her hobbies, what books she liked, or how she spent her day. Aisha responded carefully, revealing enough to build trust but never compromising her privacy. Slowly, she realized that despite the unusual circumstances, a genuine connection was forming between them. Yet even as trust developed, challenges continued. Aisha began to notice small changes in her body, signs that her agreement might soon bring physical consequences. She felt anxious about pregnancy, about health, and about the unknown. She knew she would need medical care and attention, but she had to ensure it remained private. She worried about complications, about emotions she could not yet predict, and about the responsibility that lay ahead. Fahad, sensing her concern, tried to be supportive in ways that respected the rules. He arranged for doctors, provided resources, and made sure she had everything she needed. He did not pressure her emotionally, but he offered security and stability. Aisha began to see that even though their relationship had started as an agreement, Fahad's care was real. He was not just a wealthy man seeking an heir. He was a human being capable of empathy and concern. The secrecy of their life added both tension and intensity. Aisha had to navigate every encounter carefully. Even small mistakes could expose them to the public or society's judgment. Fahad had to balance family expectations with the reality of the arrangement. They both learned to communicate clearly, to anticipate problems, and to act decisively when challenges arose. It was a world of strategy, trust, and quiet courage, where every decision mattered. Despite these pressures, moments of calm and simple happiness began to appear. Aisha found joy in small things, watching the sunset from the garden, reading a favorite book, or sharing a quiet laugh with Fahad. These moments reminded her that life could still hold beauty and warmth, even in unusual circumstances. Fahad, too, found comfort in these moments. He realized that human connection could exist even in a life filled with rules, expectations, and secrecy. Over time, their bond strengthened, though it remained subtle and unspoken. They respected each other's boundaries, shared small moments of trust, and gradually came to understand each other on a deeper level. Aisha admired Fahad's consistency, his attention to detail, and his willingness to respect her choices. Fahad admired Aisha's intelligence, independence, and resilience. Though love was not part of the agreement, respect and understanding had quietly grown into something meaningful. At the same time, they both remained aware of the stakes. The arrangement was still fragile, the world outside still unaware, and any mistake could lead to scandal or judgment. Aisha remained vigilant, careful with every step, every word, and every meeting. Fahad remained disciplined, balancing family pressure with the emerging bond he felt with Aisha. Their shared secrecy became a bond in itself, a silent understanding that they had to navigate this life together carefully. Aisha also reflected on how much she had grown in a short time. She realized that life often demanded difficult choices, and she had learned to face them with courage and dignity. She had learned patience, strategic thinking, and the importance of trusting herself. She saw that while the arrangement was unconventional, it had forced her to discover strengths she had not known existed. Fahad, too, had learned lessons about human connection, respect, and emotional responsibility. He began to understand that power alone could not define his life, and that true strength lay in compassion and understanding. Even with their growing connection, they maintained careful boundaries. Every meeting was planned, every conversation measured. Yet the quiet understanding between them grew, like a hidden thread connecting two lives. They learned to communicate without words at times, to sense moods, and to anticipate needs. This subtle bond gave both of them comfort and stability, even as the world outside remained unaware of their arrangement. As weeks turned into months, Aisha felt more confident in her role. She understood the challenges, the risks, and the emotional complexity, yet she also saw the potential for stability and even quiet happiness. She began to trust Fahad more, not blindly, but with careful observation and understanding. She realized that respect, trust, and careful communication could make even the most unusual situation manageable. Fahad, too, felt a quiet transformation. He recognized that his life had become richer in ways money and power could never achieve. He valued Aisha's presence, her insight, and her calm demeanor. He began to see her not just as part of an agreement, but as someone whose life and well-being mattered to him personally. The arrangement had started as a matter of duty, but it was slowly becoming a connection built on respect, care, and quiet understanding. Part 2 closes with Aisha and Fahad settling into a cautious but stable life. Their days are private, their bond subtle but growing, and their future uncertain yet filled with possibilities. The challenges of secrecy, societal judgment, and emotional complexity remain, but they are navigating them together. Aisha has gained confidence and resilience, and Fahad has discovered respect, empathy, and the beginnings of a deeper connection. Their lives are intertwined by choice, necessity, and growing understanding, setting the stage for the next chapter in their extraordinary journey. Aisha began to notice the first signs that her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. The subtle changes in her body, the sudden waves of fatigue, and the quiet moments of reflection all hinted that her decision had moved into a new, profound stage. She felt a mix of emotions, excitement, fear, and a strange sense of responsibility. Carrying a child was more than she had anticipated. It was a responsibility that would test her patience, courage, and emotional strength in ways she had never known. Fahad noticed the change almost immediately. He could see it in her posture, in the way she moved cautiously, in the subtle glow in her face. Unlike before, when their meetings were mostly formal and professional, now there was a new tension, a sense of something delicate and precious that required care. He became more attentive, asking about her health, making sure she had proper nutrition, and arranging regular medical checkups without drawing attention. He knew the importance of discretion. Their secret had to remain safe, and he took every step to ensure that nothing was ever leaked. Aisha appreciated the care, yet it made her think more deeply about the arrangement. She realized the decision she had made was no longer abstract, it was real. She was going to bring a child into the world, and the secrecy of the plan added weight to every choice she made. She could not be careless, nor could she let emotions cloud her judgment. At the same time, she felt a quiet pride in her ability to handle the situation with grace and intelligence. She was learning that strength was not just about physical resilience, but about the courage to make difficult decisions and stick to them. The days of quiet routine were now filled with subtle challenges. Aisha had to manage her body carefully, follow medical advice, and maintain her emotional well-being, all while remaining mostly hidden from the outside world. She could not go shopping freely, visit friends, or even casually attend social events without planning every detail. Each day required strategy and careful thought. At times, the isolation felt heavy, but she reminded herself that this was temporary, and that the future she was creating, for herself, her family, and her child, was worth the effort. Fahad, for his part, began to understand emotions he had never confronted before. The arrangement had started as a practical solution to a family problem, but now, seeing Aisha in this delicate stage, he felt a deep sense of responsibility and care. He found himself worrying about her when she was not around, imagining small scenarios where she might need support or comfort. He had promised to maintain boundaries, yet he felt the desire to be more present, to protect her, and to offer reassurance that went beyond what the original agreement had intended. As the weeks passed, small complications arose. Aisha experienced moments of dizziness, nausea, and fatigue, common signs of pregnancy, but difficult to manage in a life that required constant discretion. She had to carefully plan every outing, every meeting, and even every conversation. One morning, she nearly fainted while walking in the private garden, and Fahad was there almost instantly, steadying her and insisting she rest. He looked at her with concern that was no longer just professional. Aisha felt a strange comfort in his presence, a reassurance that she had not expected. The secrecy of their arrangement made even small incidents feel like crises. Aisha could not call a friend for help without risking exposure, and Fahad could not involve anyone outside his trusted circle. They had to rely entirely on each other. This reliance created a bond that grew stronger every day. Though they rarely spoke of feelings, the unspoken understanding between them became a source of comfort. Each glance, Each small gesture of support strengthened the quiet connection forming between them. Aisha also faced internal conflicts. She found herself thinking about the child she would bear and the life that would follow. Questions filled her mind. Would she have the strength to raise a child in secrecy if something went wrong? Would she and Fahad be able to maintain stability for the child while keeping the arrangement hidden? Could she ever allow herself to feel love or attachment without fear of judgment? These questions were heavy, but she answered them with determination, reminding herself that she was capable of managing challenges with intelligence and courage. Fahad, too, faced his own doubts. He realized that the arrangement was no longer simple. He cared deeply about Aisha's well-being, and he worried about the potential consequences if anything went wrong. For the first time, he confronted emotions he had long avoided: concern, attachment, and even the beginnings of affection. He found himself thinking about her when she was not around, imagining how she might be feeling, and planning ways to ensure her comfort. Yet he reminded himself of their boundaries, careful not to overstep while still offering support. The couple faced external pressures as well. Though their lives were mostly hidden, subtle hints of suspicion began to appear in society. People whispered about absences, noticed small changes, and questioned unusual patterns in Fahad's schedule. Aisha had to be vigilant, careful with every appearance, and maintain an appearance of normalcy. Fahad had to navigate family expectations, ensuring that no one suspected the arrangement while still being present for Aisha. These pressures added tension, but also forced them to communicate more clearly and act as a team. Despite the challenges, moments of joy and connection began to appear. Aisha found comfort in small routines: a morning tea in the sunlit garden, a quiet walk through the private halls of the home, or a book read aloud while Fahad worked nearby. Fahad, in turn, found joy in these small moments, noticing Aisha's laughter, the spark in her eyes, and the grace with which she managed her new reality. They began to see each other not just as partners in an arrangement, but as people capable of understanding, trust, and even companionship. As the months progressed, Aisha's pregnancy became more evident. The changes in her body brought both physical and emotional challenges. She experienced moments of doubt, wondering if she had made the right choice, and moments of strength, realizing her capacity to manage life's difficulties. She also began to reflect on Fahad differently. He was no longer just the wealthy man with a proposal. He was a person who had shown consistent care, respect, and concern. She realized that trust and respect could form the foundation of something meaningful, even in the most unconventional circumstances. Fahad, meanwhile, noticed changes in himself that surprised him. He found himself protective of Aisha in ways that went beyond duty. He thought about her comfort before his own, anticipated her needs, and became increasingly aware of the emotional connection developing between them. Though he did not yet call it love, he understood that feelings were growing quietly, naturally, and beyond his control. He respected Aisha's boundaries, yet he could not deny the deepening care he felt. The couple also had to manage practical challenges together. Doctors, appointments, nutrition plans, and daily routines required careful coordination. Aisha learned to balance rest, activity, and mental focus, while Fahad ensured that every need was met without compromising their secrecy. They discovered that teamwork, mutual respect, and clear communication could make even difficult circumstances manageable. These shared efforts strengthened the bond between them, creating a partnership built on understanding and trust. As the pregnancy progressed further, Aisha experienced moments of fear and doubt. She worried about complications, about public discovery, and about the responsibilities that lay ahead. Fahad noticed these moments and responded with gentle reassurance. He would speak quietly, reminding her that she was strong, capable, and not alone. These moments, though small, became crucial in building trust and deepening their connection. Aisha began to see Fahad not only as someone fulfilling an obligation, but as someone whose presence brought comfort, security, and emotional support. In addition to personal challenges, they faced subtle societal pressure. Even without knowledge of the arrangement, people around them began to notice irregularities: Fahad's sudden absences, Aisha's carefully managed schedule, and small changes in demeanor. The tension of secrecy became a constant companion, requiring vigilance, strategy, and discretion. Aisha and Fahad learned to anticipate challenges, act decisively, and support each other in ways that went beyond their initial agreement. Despite the complexity, moments of quiet happiness appeared. Aisha found joy in small accomplishments, completing a book, mastering a new recipe, or simply feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. Fahad discovered satisfaction in seeing her well-being, noticing her quiet strength, and appreciating her intelligence. They began to experience a subtle emotional intimacy, a connection that was not romantic yet deeply human. The understanding between them grew, shaped by trust, care, and the shared experience of navigating life's challenges together. Part 3 closes with Aisha and Fahad entering the final stage of this chapter. Aisha's pregnancy has become a central part of their lives, bringing both challenges and emotional growth. They have learned to trust each other, navigate secrecy, and manage practical and emotional responsibilities. Their bond has deepened in subtle ways, built on respect, care, and quiet understanding. The story is poised to move into the next stage, where the child's arrival and the consequences of secrecy will shape their lives in new and unexpected ways. The day finally arrived when Aisha felt that everything was about to change. Months of preparation, careful planning, and quiet endurance had led to this moment. Her pregnancy had progressed steadily, but the anticipation of childbirth brought a mix of fear, excitement, and a deep sense of responsibility. She had spent so long thinking about the child, imagining the moment she would meet him or her, and now that moment was near. Fahad was by her side, quietly attentive, ensuring everything was ready. Despite his usual calm and composed demeanor, there was a hint of tension in his eyes. He had grown protective of Aisha in ways he had never expected. Though the arrangement had started as a practical matter, he now understood the depth of his emotional involvement. He wanted the birth to be safe, smooth, and private. He wanted Aisha to feel supported, cared for, and respected. The medical team, carefully chosen to maintain privacy, arrived with quiet efficiency. Aisha was prepared both physically and mentally for the process ahead. Yet, as she lay on the hospital bed, she felt a wave of nervousness. The fear of the unknown, the responsibility of carrying new life, and the desire to keep everything secret pressed on her. She took a deep breath, remembering all the months she had endured. She reminded herself that she was strong, capable, and ready to face the challenge. Fahad held her hand, offering quiet reassurance. He did not speak unnecessarily, but his presence was a comfort. Every small glance, every supportive gesture reminded Aisha that she was not alone. They had faced challenges together: the secrecy, the pressures from society, the emotional complexities of their unusual arrangement. Now, those months of careful navigation led to this single moment, where the stakes were highest and their courage would be tested. Hours passed slowly. The labor was intense and exhausting, testing Aisha's endurance and determination. She felt pain and fatigue like never before, yet she kept her focus on the child she was bringing into the world. Fahad remained by her side, quietly guiding her through each step, offering encouragement without overwhelming her. In those moments, words were unnecessary. Their silent communication, built over months of trust, spoke louder than any reassurance could. Finally, the moment arrived. The cries of a newborn filled the room, a sound that brought tears to Aisha's eyes. She looked at the child, small, fragile, and perfect, and felt a surge of love and responsibility. The months of secrecy, effort, and endurance culminated in this tiny, delicate life. Fahad leaned closer, his eyes reflecting a mixture of relief, pride, and awe. They both understood that life had changed forever. The child was healthy, and the doctors quietly confirmed that both mother and baby were safe. Aisha held the child close, feeling the warmth, the small movements, and the tiny heartbeat. It was overwhelming, yet profoundly beautiful. She realized that the arrangement she had once viewed as purely practical had become something far more meaningful. This child was now a living connection between her and Fahad, a bond that could not be defined by simple agreements or boundaries. Fahad, seeing Aisha with the child, felt emotions he had long resisted. He had respected boundaries, maintained secrecy, and approached the arrangement with caution. Yet, watching her hold their child, he felt genuine pride, attachment, and care. He realized that the arrangement had evolved, and that their connection, though unconventional, was now real in a way that mattered deeply. The child was no longer just an obligation or a solution to a family problem. He was a symbol of trust, endurance, and shared responsibility. The days that followed were a mixture of joy, adjustment, and continued secrecy. Aisha cared for the child, learning the rhythms of feeding, soothing, and nurturing. Fahad supported her quietly, ensuring that she had everything she needed while maintaining their privacy. Though they rarely spoke about feelings, their bond continued to grow through small acts, gentle touches, shared glances, and quiet understanding. The child became the center of their world, yet it also revealed the depth of their connection to each other. Even in these moments of happiness, challenges persisted. They had to maintain secrecy from society, from curious relatives, and from anyone who might question unusual absences or arrangements. Each outing, each encounter, had to be carefully planned. Yet the difficulties only strengthened their partnership. They learned to rely on each other more deeply, to anticipate needs, and to communicate without words. The child became a focal point, but it also became a bridge that connected their lives in ways neither had expected. Aisha reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had faced months of uncertainty, emotional strain, and social isolation. She had learned patience, courage, and resilience. She had also discovered the power of careful choice and personal boundaries. Though the arrangement had been unconventional, she realized that it had tested her in ways that prepared her for the responsibilities ahead. Holding her child, she felt a profound sense of achievement and purpose. Fahad, too, had grown in ways he had not anticipated. He had learned about empathy, emotional responsibility, and respect. He had seen that power and wealth could not replace genuine care and trust. The months of navigating secrecy, supporting Aisha, and preparing for the child had changed him. He began to understand that life was not only about family obligations or societal expectations. It was also about human connection, respect, and shared responsibility. As the days turned into weeks, a routine developed around caring for the child. Aisha and Fahad worked together seamlessly, each respecting the other's boundaries while providing support and guidance. They learned to anticipate each other's needs, to share responsibilities, and to communicate without unnecessary words. This quiet partnership became the foundation of a new chapter in their lives, one defined by trust, mutual respect, and the shared joy of nurturing a child. The child grew, small milestones marking the passage of time, first smiles, first sounds, first movements. Each moment brought joy, pride, and a deeper sense of connection between Aisha and Fahad. Though they had not expected emotional attachment to grow, it naturally did. They discovered that even the most carefully planned arrangements could evolve into meaningful relationships when guided by respect, understanding, and shared responsibility. Aisha also reflected on her personal growth. She realized that strength was not only about enduring challenges, but also about embracing love, care, and human connection. She had learned that independence did not mean isolation, and that trust could form even in unconventional circumstances. Her confidence grew, and she understood that she could navigate life's complexities while maintaining dignity and purpose. Fahad, observing her growth, felt admiration and respect deepen. He recognized that their shared journey had transformed him as well. He no longer viewed the arrangement as a simple solution to a problem, but as a partnership built on mutual understanding, care, and quiet affection. Though they still maintained secrecy from the outside world, their bond had become a source of strength, stability, and emotional fulfillment. Despite the challenges of secrecy, they occasionally allowed themselves small moments of openness, quiet conversations about hopes for the child, reflections on the journey they had shared, and gentle encouragement for each other. These moments strengthened their emotional connection without compromising their privacy. They learned that even in secrecy, trust, understanding, and care could flourish. As months passed, Aisha and Fahad realized that the arrangement had evolved beyond the original agreement. It had become a life shared in quiet partnership, a journey shaped by respect, patience, and mutual support. They had faced uncertainty, emotional challenges, and societal pressures, yet they had navigated them together. The child was the symbol of their efforts, but also the proof that unconventional circumstances could create profound human connections. In the final moments of this chapter of their story, Aisha reflected on everything she had learned. She had entered the arrangement with caution, intelligence, and a focus on practicality. She had faced emotional and physical challenges, navigated secrecy, and endured social pressure. Yet through it all, she had discovered strength, resilience, and the quiet joy of nurturing life. She had also learned that human connection could grow even in the most unexpected circumstances. Fahad, watching her with the child in her arms, felt a similar understanding. He had begun with duty, obligation, and careful planning. Yet over time, he had discovered respect, care, and the beginnings of affection that could not be ignored. He realized that true responsibility involved more than wealth or power. It involved understanding, trust, and the courage to care for someone beyond oneself. Part 4 concludes with a sense of resolution and hope. Aisha and Fahad have navigated the complexities of secrecy, societal expectations, and emotional growth. They have faced the challenges of pregnancy and childbirth with courage and care. Their bond, though unconventional, has deepened into a quiet, meaningful partnership. The child represents not only their shared responsibility, but also the potential for a future defined by understanding, respect, and subtle love. Their journey is far from over, but they have proven that human connection, resilience, and care can flourish even under unusual circumstances. They have built a life together based on trust, partnership, and the shared joy of raising a child. While secrecy remains necessary, the emotional foundation they have created ensures that their future, though unconventional, is filled with stability, respect, and hope.